It was Acting Navy Secretary Thomas Modly who broke the news during a press briefing at the Pentagon late Thursday Guam time.
So the ship is pulling into Guam. It will be pierside. No one on the crew will be allowed to leave anywhere into Guam other than on pierside. And we are already starting the process of testing on 100% of the crew to ensure that we've got that contained. The sailors who have been flown off the ship are currently doing fine. None of them have been required to be hospitalized because their symptoms are very mild. They're aches and pains and those types of things, sore throats, but nothing that required hospitalization. So they are in quarantine now on Guam.
The Navy here declined a request for an interview and in a statement said only that the carrier Roosevelt was here for a scheduled port visit for resupply and crew rest, although it had already made an extended stay in Guam just last month.
You've tuned in to Stranger Than Fiction News, broadcasting live from the dark side of the planet. You might be wondering to yourselves, what does China have to do with this current situation? And well, what many people have forgotten already is that this outbreak originated in China. And it's infected pretty much the entire world. And what we're learning right now is that the USS Roosevelt has been dealt a heavy blow. Insiders from the ship have been quoted as saying, "We're fucked," ladies and gentlemen. And this is something they should have prepared for way back in January. I remember the broadcasts where we were like, send the subs into the deep, DEFCON 1, we've been attacked. And if, nothing is done, then basically our entire defense establishment will be compromised by the Wuhan supervirus. And lo and behold, that's exactly what has happened. And not only are we facing, mass devastation on American streets and American cities, but the entire establishment is about to buckle. Now you might be saying to yourself, Johnson, why are you talking about this? Don't let the enemy know that we're fucked. Well, it's all over the news already, ladies and gentlemen. And if you listen to the press conference from the Navy at the Pentagon, they're like, we're doing the best we can. Which means we're fucked. Because there's just nothing that can really be done in this particular situation. Everyone is going to become a bioreactor. And as virus load ramps up in a confined space, it's going to wipe everybody out. And the problem with these, ships is that it's like a can of sardines. And whether it be a carrier or a submarine, in the bunks, they're like stacked one on top of the other. They have to be. And, we're not going to hear about this more than we already have. But what has come out just confirms the worst case scenario. And, the Chinese know this, ladies and gentlemen. They may not say so on CNN, on the television, but the Chinese know their weapon. They know what's going on. They know what's about to hit our cities. They're just watching. They've closed their borders, and now they're reporting. They're like, ooh, America has 100,000 cases. Ooh, it's about to get delicious. Look at these numbers through the roof. 17,000 new cases in 24 hours in America. We're at 97,000. Italy is at 86,000. China, officially, 81,000. But we've talked about their numbers plenty of times. Ladies and gentlemen. We'll get into the news. We're just warming up. How's everybody doing out there? Is anybody out there? You guys seeing this? Okay. Let's see who's out there. Oh, we got 100 people out there. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. Looks like we got people all over the world, from all over the world, watching this broadcast. And look, it looks kind of slim and shady on the ScrewTube, but our syndication on Facebook goes much further. Not as much as it used to. Free speech isn't what it used to be, especially now that they've suspended the Constitution with their state of emergency, ladies and gentlemen. And, that's just the beginning of the story. But let us not forget the videos from early on in the outbreak that really made us sound the alarm. We were seeing videos like this, people being buried alive in their buildings. Turns out they're missing 21 million people. 21 million people have just dropped off the radar, according to the official phone records from China. Chinese telecom companies are reporting a drop. Each one of them, one company was missing 5 million, another company was missing 8 million, another company was missing another 8 million. And they're missing 21 million people out there. Gone. Vanished. So everything should have told the establishment that, hey, this is, some seriously wicked shit that has escaped the lab over there. And for months, we were talking about this. Now, of course, this attack was over before it really began, before we really knew what happened. And, by the time they locked down Wuhan, and by the time they, stopped the flights coming in from China, we'd had like 2 or 3 weeks worth of traffic, air traffic coming in every day. They're saying 20,000 people alone from Wuhan flew into America at the height of the epidemic, let alone all of the other places. So it was really over before it began. But what they could have done was to prepare for the surge. Give everybody masks, give everybody, antivirals, give everybody, something. Instead, they just pretended like nothing was going on. They sold their stocks. They suspended the Constitution. And who knows what's coming next. Now, the Chinese are certainly preparing to invade Taiwan. They've been preparing to invade Taiwan for, decades. Will they actually do it is the question here, ladies and gentlemen. But they're definitely preparing to invade Taiwan. And now, all of our assets are forced to pull back to Guam, and they're just sitting there, in quarantine. And of course, all of the generals must be thinking, if we send the subs in to the ocean now, what's going to happen to them? Will they be able to perform their duties? What's it going to be like in 2 weeks? What's it going to be like in 3 weeks? I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, there's the writing on the wall. There's an ominous sign in the heavens right now, ladies and gentlemen. And, we don't hardly ever talk about things like that here on this channel, but something is coming, something big. We've been kind of riding this epidemic, watching it on, ABC, CBS, Fox News. And we're like, yeah, it looks kind of bad in New York and, California and whatever, but it's okay where I'm at. Well, it looks like things are going to get real bad real soon. To what extent and when is another question. And really everything at this stage is, interpretation. But we know that this is an extraordinary moment in human history. How bad will it get? Where's the end game? What's going on? Who released this virus? And the like. We know who let it in. This beast system this New World Order system, this Antichrist system. Ladies and gentlemen, you can tell them by their fruits. I mean, the television is 24/7 product placement for Luciferian ideology. And, you know, it's like, it's terrible, you know, watching the television these days. They all have their own accent, their own language. You know, all these libtards on television, they're just all just so amazed. How could this happen? What's going on? Why isn't anybody helping them? And, you know, how deep does the rabbit hole go? I mean, this looks like, you know, a huge...
And when it got down to the plane is 10 miles out, the young man also said to the vice president, "Do the orders still stand?" And the vice president turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?"
Have you heard anything to the contrary? You've seen the Georgia Guidestones. You've seen the Agenda 21. You've seen the Death Towers. You've seen the GMOs, the vaccines, the autism, the fluoride. You know what's coming. You know what's up. You know what's up with this virus. They're doing everything they can to exterminate you. This is what people get for being complacent, especially on this scale. You know, if your neighbor was doing something that annoyed you, I mean, it wouldn't take you long to, you know, knock on their door or call 911, you know, depending on the situation. But here you got this genocidal government that's poisoning people, you know, that's waging endless wars. It's propaganda everywhere. And people do nothing. Nothing. Ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, the last time there was a 9/11, it happened in New York. It happened so far away, it didn't really affect you. Not so with this 9/11. And we'll be getting into what this virus is. It's airborne AIDS mixed in with Ebola. And you might get over it, but you're going to get reinfected by it because it's like AIDS. There's no immunity to it. Not long term. That's what people will discover. That's what they're holding back. That's the bad news. And it's not going to slow down with summer that much. It's going to hit like a ton of bricks next winter. It's going to be a long winter. You thought this winter was bad. Just wait till next winter. But there's lots of things going on right now. And it's not just this outbreak in your city or in your town. There's many dynamics to explore. And one that we shouldn't forget here is that we're just basically going to be running around naked without, you know, our forces at 100% in a way that we just couldn't have imagined. You know, everything has been compromised. Everything. Command and control. I mean, in the UK, we're learning that, you know, the prince is infected. The prime minister is infected. The minister of health is infected, right? And we're learning that the military is infected. The cops are infected. The doctors are infected. Everybody's infected. But chances are somebody's sitting on the cure. And we're learning a little bit about the cure. And it's funny because you got the New World Order Health Organization that just came out today, and they're like, "Oh, this stuff here, no, don't take this stuff." Even though we're getting real positive feedback from doctors and hospitals, you'd think like, oh, you know, that they would be interested. And maybe we should just do a large trial. I mean, let people volunteer. Do you want to try this stuff? We've been hearing good things about it. And it's like, no, don't do this. And watch, they're going to do everything they can to make this drug combo disappear. It's already begun in Europe. We've noticed that they're doing the switcheroo, and they're trying to replace the Zithromax with Coletra. And other studies have shown Coletra to not, you know, help. We'll have to see. The Australians say something different, but New York doctors and other healthcare professionals, including, you know, some kind of director of infectious diseases in France, they're all touting this combination as making a difference. And you've got a lot of, personal testimonials out there on the internet right now. But guess what? All of that is vanishing. As hard as that is to believe, right now we're watching them try to rewrite the recipe. And, in that way they can say it doesn't work. No, we tried the hydroxychloroquine and it doesn't work. They won't mention that they were doing it with Coletra instead of the Zithromax. So be on the lookout for that. We're already starting to see a lot of, weird things in the matrix. Today, I caught something real weird. This infectious disease specialist from France that was touting this as a miracle cure and just basically, turned the system upside down over there. All of his tweets talking about Zithromax and his videos talking about Zithromax are gone. And the official prescription in France right now is Coletra with the Plaquenil. Now, maybe it works better. Maybe it works just the same. Maybe they can't get a full stock of the Zithromax, and so they're just going for the generic or the alternative. It's hard to say. But at this stage, it's super suspicious, super shady, and we feel that this will be kind of like, spread out throughout the entire New World Order. Of course, what happens in France and the UK is very relevant to what happens in America, ladies and gentlemen. All the Freemasonry comes from Europe and the like. And obviously the video guy is on vacation. But don't think that, what happens in France doesn't matter. What happens in the UK doesn't matter because, it's totally involved. It's just kind of like how the French Revolution was just 5 years after the American Revolution. We'll get into that, ladies and gentlemen. We got more news to cover, as well as the latest updates, what's happening, what's going on, what's the forecast. Again, this is just the beginning of the outbreak, statistically speaking. And the mainstream media is saying it'll peak sometime in April, maybe May. We've seen CDC reports that say 2 million people will be dead by June or July. How many people are dead right now is the question. I'm sure they're hiding a lot of the numbers. Let's see what the news has to say. Reuters reports U.S. increases support for Taiwan. China threatens to strike back. And in a couple of weeks, it's going to be, easy pickings. They'll probably be able to roll in their tanks right there into California and start the invasion. Things will be so broken by then. Italy confirms a record 919 new deaths, they say, due to the coronavirus. That's, quite a bit in one day. When it broke 100 in a day, people are like, wow, 500 in a day, wow. But when these numbers get so big, it's like you forget that each one of these people basically suffocated to death in a very horrible way. Like being gassed, really, with mustard gas or Zyklon B. And it's essentially that's what this virus is. It's like, viral gassing. And people will just, suffer the same way, a horrible death. And I'm not sure how many people out there have been affected by the shortness of breath, but all of the, the testimony out there is that this is a horrible way to go. And so each one of these numbers matter in terms of the misery index out there. What else we got? Prime Sinister announces he has the coronavirus, as well as, everybody in their establishment now, all of the cabinet members, secretaries, all of the generals they were meeting with. And, I think we're going to hear, quite a few horror stories in the next couple of weeks across the board in every country. And at this stage, it's, it's difficult to celebrate. It's difficult to celebrate watching this beast system implode, watching Sodom and Gomorrah, basically get consumed by this. Normally, I think most people would be celebrating this fact, especially after the long road we've been on dealing with these people on the left. And it's just hard to celebrate when you think about all of this. It really is hard to celebrate. The idea sounded really good on paper, you know what I mean, like a few months ago, but watching it happen now, it's extraordinary. And you can't imagine what it's like in these cities and what it's going to become in the next few weeks. But we saw what happened in Wuhan. People were being buried alive in their buildings. We probably got footage of that. You know what I mean? If you want to check out our updates, it's on stfnreport.com. We update throughout the day. Best stories that we can find, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure we've got some vintage footage. Perhaps not. Oh, the video guy's fired. Fired. Tired of the video guy. Every day it's the same thing. It just doesn't work out. And so if you guys know a better video guy, just send them our way. But these were the videos that we were getting. Some of them, as well as many others, people being liquidated, people being extracted from their homes, buried alive, everything barricaded. They were even building walls along the streets. It was so bad, like permanently, closed. So, and we've actually got footage of the first, one of the first drop dead cases in America. That has occurred. So, yeah, it's hard to celebrate all this stuff, to be quite honest. And you just can't imagine, them doing nothing. I mean, we have bioweapons. We must know what it looks like. We must know what to do. And in fact, there's protocols in place to safeguard us from this exact same kind of scenario. They didn't follow the protocols. They didn't do anything right. But what they have done is they've imprisoned everyone and suspended their rights. That's what they've done. Everyone is now, especially in these big cities, they're like, you're no longer allowed to go outside, do anything. You're locked down. I mean, they made the mistakes, and now they're locking everybody down, which will probably make this situation even worse. We saw what happened when they locked people down on the Diamond Princess. What happened when they locked these people down in these apartment buildings in Wuhan and the like. I mean, the whole building got infected and everybody was killed. So, there's definitely like two different stories going on as far as how people are living out this outbreak. If you're in a home, and you got a yard and stuff like that, consider yourself extremely lucky. Because there's a lot of people right now that are, basically confined to their cells. And with the indoor pollution out there, it's probably making the situation much worse. We highly recommend, not using any type of respiratory, anything that might inflame your respiratory system. Bleach, organic volatile compounds, perfumes, scented candles, incense. Ventilate when you're cooking out there, ladies and gentlemen. That's basically how this thing gets you. And they're going to be rolling by with like disinfectants, and they're just going to be gassing you even more. And they're always broadcasting on their socialist networks out there. NBC, Fakebook, you name it. Check this out. Connecticut doctor is arrested for deliberately coughing on his coworkers. Now, we noticed that in a lot of the videos, it kind of looked like, these people were trying to contaminate other people on purpose in Asia. And then we started learning about this virus causing stealth encephalitis, like rabies. And so, this virus, among other things, will have people acting out in strange and unusual ways. Ladies and gentlemen. Not sure what the video guy is doing out there. But yeah, so the guy looks American to me. So if it happened in China and it's happening in America, it's probably going to be happening in a town near you pretty soon. People just going crazy. Be prepared for that. Doorbell camera catches vile Amazon delivery driver spitting on packages and rubbing it in with his hands. You're going to get these super spreaders everywhere. It's like, you know, the virus takes over and it turns people into, you know, into bioweapons in a sense. It's probably going to be a while before they decode everything that's in this virus. But it's not just, you know, a regular virus, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing works against it. Not masks, not tests, and certainly not washing your hands. You know, that brings us, I kind of want to go back to the Boris Johnson thing. You know, where is that? There we go. So you have to ask Boris Johnson not only, you know, how many people did he infect, but did washing hands work? I mean, was he washing his hands enough? I mean, I saw a ton of videos of him washing his hands with this airborne virus. And, you know, you saw like every character over there, you know, visiting hospitals without masks and the like. You know, they were just washing their hands. You know, how many people did they infect with their, you know, bullshit? Really? And it was the same thing, you know, in America pretty much too. Wash your hands. You know, everything will be fine. This is just the flu. Department of Defense plans to move the headstones and reinter the remains at Bethel Cemetery to expand the NSA campus out there. How many people remember watching the movie Poltergeist? You know what I mean? So they actually want to, you know, build facilities on this gravesite. I mean, that just brings, like, you know, a whole new definition to the word spook out there. You know, they want to be spooky. Everybody wants to be spooky. But now they're really going to be spooky, having their HQ on a gravesite. Just thought we'd throw that in there. Stars and Stripes thought it was interesting as well, for your information. DOL publishes additional FAQs, that's the Department of Labor, making clear that employees on furlough or layoff are not eligible for the FFCPA and paid sick leave or expanded FMLA. So it'll be interesting to see who actually gets a check. Yes, hurry up, old people. You must be sacrificed to save the economy. But again, this is a bioweapon, and what we're learning is that, you know, more people under 45 are being infected than people over 45. So Italy's death spike by nearly 1,000, and they haven't peaked yet. So that's what we can expect. Now they've got about, what, 50 million people. We got 7 times that. Can we imagine, you know, near the peak where it's 10,000 people a day that are dead in America? Will they ever report those numbers? Maybe in New York. Not sure how many people saw this interview with Congressman Massey, and they're basically saying, you know, everything was done off the record. It's just like the most shady thing, you know, this whole stimulus thing. We're not allowed to see the bill, and they don't want their vote recorded. They don't want anything to be recorded. Although we did see a few people kind of freak out today in Congress like never before. And let's see, what else is the video guy up to? This is video of an extraction. An entire building extracted at the same time. The goon squads show up. They tell you your building has been infected. Please come with us, and nobody ever sees you again. Pretty much. They're missing 21 million people out there, and you know we've covered the video of the live webcams from Wuhan. It's like there's nobody there. So we've got some other real interesting footage that we'll get to. Looks like the revolution is beginning in China out there. And so might World War III. I mean, you know, when the body bags start really, you know, coming to the crematorium, you know, 5,000 Americans a day, 10,000 Americans a day, thanks to this Chinese bioweapon. I mean, somebody's going to get nuked. You know, it's inevitable. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to nuke anybody, but I mean, look, we got bio-nuked here, and it looks like it's going to be perpetual forever, and we're never going to be as strong as we are today, in theory. We're never as young as we are today, right? And we'll never have, you know, we'll keep losing capacity as time goes on here. And look, you know, I'm sure a lot of people want to see proof of concept before they push the button, and I think we'll have plenty of opportunities to see how bad this situation is. But we've been following this virus since the beginning, and there's nothing here that looks very reassuring at all. It's mixed in with AIDS and Ebola, it's airborne, and the like, and there's no reason to think that people will ever get immunity to this. And chances are it'll just keep coming back like herpes. And they're already, you know, trying to prepare people for that. Oh, it's gonna be back next winter, and the winter after that, and the winter after that. And you know, this is just the beginning of the nightmare, just the beginning. And chances are we're gonna see something pretty freaky here in the next few days, few weeks. I mean, that sounds like a given, but you know, it looks like the writing is on the wall there. What does that mean? We'll find out what that means. We're watching a tsunami and standing there frozen, they say. USA Today publishes an article, the coronavirus test that never was, how federal health officials misled state scientists and derailed any hopes of, you know, avoiding this tsunami. The Chinese are saying you must be in China by basically today. They've put in their deadline, saying they're going to close down their borders. So Chinese nationals are trying to get back into China for fear of what's coming. Recommendation from Chinese military expert came just days after the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps units arrived Sunday in the South China Sea. Chinese military expert advocates using lasers to paralyze U.S. warships. I mean, they're ultra aggressive, man, and I don't think anybody should doubt that they released this virus on purpose as some kind of, you know, preemptive attack. Now, what's really, you know, nefarious here is that our government just let it in. They didn't even try to stop it. They're like, oh, come on in, make yourself at home. So that's what we're dealing with, traitors. And, you know, they've tried to kill everyone. They should be charged with 350 million counts of attempted murder. You know, all of these authority figures, whether it be, you know, the president, vice president, you know, all the secretaries, all the ministers, you name it, director of the FBI, all these people let it in. Now, you know, we are getting reports that at least the CIA tried to warn, you know, this administration, but they weren't hearing it, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, this is treason. This is attempted murder, and so far there's, you know, there's over 1,000 dead, and, you know, we're looking at 100,000 dead minimum but we're probably looking at millions, if not tens of millions of Americans that will die within the next 12 months. It's hard to say how many. But how many cases before you go to trial? They let this stuff in, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we want them to be successful and, stop this virus. That's what they're promising, but they're not going to stop this virus. They're going to say they're going to stop this virus. It's just like, every other serial killer out there. They all say they're innocent. In fact, pretty much everybody in prison says they're innocent. Hardly anybody ever says they're guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, Chinese maritime militia on the move in disputed Spratly Islands, being reported that the Chinese are taking advantage of the situation. They're sending ships, planes into the disputed seas to show their strength. How long before they arrive in America? I mean, we know that they've already arrived in certain other countries providing aid. How long before, that expands into something else? Communist China is surging forward with its colonization of the South China Sea as the world grapples with the pandemic. And what is this? We know that, things are positioned to get hot out there. We've got at least 3 carrier groups, 3 out of the 12 in the South Pacific. I mean, that's probably average. But we know that the Roosevelt is headed back to Guam, and probably every other ship, every other base has been infected. I don't think they're going to, report on, the evolution of that. But, their press conferences have, said everything you need to hear. They're doing the best they can given, the situation. And it is what it is. It is what it is. You just wish that people would have listened, weeks, months ago. And, maybe they've got, a couple divisions or battalions that are free from infection. But we'll see how far that gets. China's attack of Taiwan will lead to World War III, they say. Navy firing a missile during the South China Sea military drill is sending a strong message to China. That was yesterday. The CCP has been doing this all over the world. China-backed firms shipped out Australia's medical supplies in bulk just before the outbreak. Now, when they were going through their outbreak, everybody was sending their supplies to them. And given that they own all sorts of companies and depots and warehouses, they were liquidating the stocks behind the scenes on top of buying up everything on the market. And now they're sitting real nice, and the rest of the world is in free fall. There's already way more cases in the rest of the world than there ever was in China officially. Way more deaths as well. I mean, Italy has twice as many deaths as China has officially. And that's just one country. So, what's next? Ladies and gentlemen, what is next? Which country is going to get it next? Which city? How many? And look, it's easy to blame the Chinese, but I think every country, every government is to blame because they all just let it in. And, they're going to claim like, oh, well, everybody said it was just the flu. That's their plausible deniability. But not everybody was saying this was just the flu. And the videos spoke for themselves. I'm not sure who could watch those videos and say this is just the flu. You just had to look at the reaction from the Chinese, as far as what they were doing to try to contain it. And it looked like Resident Evil. I mean, they were burying people alive in their buildings, literally. Now, this is people of Hubei trying to escape the county, if you will, and they're now, in mainland China, fighting back against the authorities. How real will it get? Well, they've all been disarmed, remember. So how far can they go with, a homicidal regime that's, armed with nuclear weapons? Interesting question. But we're getting reports that things are starting to break down over there. Homeland Security memo warns violent extremists could take advantage of vulnerable time. That's typical that they would say something like that. I mean, everybody's been locked down, their rights have been suspended, and anybody that would dare say anything is, obviously an extremist. And so, that's going to be their justification for goon squads. Oh, look, this person wasn't happy with the virus and the lockdown and, this new arrangement. So, beware. Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister of the UK, calls for global government to tackle the virus. That's problem, reaction, solution for you, ladies and gentlemen. They cause the problems, and then they've got the solution. Stunning video. I want to get this software.
Spring break beach crowds could really have on our society in the face.
But with this software here, they were able to track, all the phones that were on the network, and just basically select an area and then just trace the phones to see where they go. Kind of like, Fitbit in a way, but on a bigger scale. And, they were just looking at just these people from spring break on, Palm Beach or whatever. And, they basically infected, just this little group could infect the eastern half of the United States. Imagine what 7,000 people from Wuhan did at the height of the epidemic. And those people, they weren't just coming to chill, in a hotel room. They were coming to, visit the White House, visit Congress, visit Disneyland. You know what I mean? So you can't imagine a scenario where everyone isn't infected. Let's see, what do we got here? A study of different antibodies isolated from 8 different patients. Some antibody clones are highly effective at neutralizing live SARS in cells, suggesting that we now know human antibody sequences that would be effective in COVID-19. So basically, molecular biology is to the point where you can type code on a keyboard and literally bioprint it and boot it up in a laboratory. All life is the product of a genetic code. It's a program, right? That's what we're learning now. And obviously, I'm not sure how many people know anything about programming, codes, information, but you just can't get information without intelligence. And, it's the ultimate proof, if you want, that life was created. It's right there in the DNA. And, every living thing you see out there is a program. Whether it be a cat or a dog or a tree or the grass, it's a program. And it's part of this constructed reality that we live in. Everything is, happening. Everything that's happening is part of the plan. And you can take comfort in knowing that. Good people will always be okay. This is as bad as it gets for us, ladies and gentlemen. And we're all here with a life sentence doing our time. But for these evildoers in Sodom and Gomorrah, these Luciferians, it's hell that awaits. So it's not looking too good for them right now, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to check out our video description for, lots of information as far as nutraceuticals, as well as current therapies that are being explored in hospitals, and other information like the smoking gun. Where did this virus come from? But never forget, ladies and gentlemen, life was created, and if you want to know more about that, it's in the Bible, Genesis 1, chapter 1. Check it out. You'll be glad you did. Check this out. Viewers blast insensitive ITV for airing pandemic thriller Contagion during the crisis. They say 160 people complained to Ofcom. That's like their FCC out there. Imagine the nerve of some people. They see something on television. They're so offended they have to call the federal authorities. Whatever happened to changing the channel? You know what I mean? Where did Boris Johnson catch the virus? From the Chinese weapons lab. Not directly, but everybody's been infected by this, Chinese bioweapon. Ladies and gentlemen. And, somebody out there thought this was a good idea. Somebody released this virus. Other people let it in. They told you, just wash your hands with this airborne virus. So there's plenty of people to blame out there. And I don't think any of them should escape blame. And I don't think they should be out there on television saying, you can't leave your home. You're now a prisoner in your own home. Your rights have been suspended because we fucked up. That's usually not how it works. Just saying. And, these people are responsible. And as far as the evidence that, we've seen, quarantines make this thing worse for various reasons. And, it'll be kind of like this downward spiral that'll just keep feeding itself. The confinement makes it worse. The quarantines make it worse. They think it's worse. Just, and so they make the measures, or they tighten the screws and make the, the quarantine restrictions even worse, and so on and so forth. And eventually people will just end up being buried alive. And, big cities will just basically self-destruct, which is, more or less okay, I think. You know what I mean? But you have to feel bad for these people. I mean, we've tried to help them despite it all. This is the French propaganda minister. You can see she doesn't look European, but she's telling everybody that she's in a war on the front lines, and she doesn't look like much of a warrior. This nurse was nice enough to show us how to dress, properly protect ourselves in the environment. She's wearing 2 masks, looks like a shower cap, and she's got the full 3M spacesuit on. So, how can anybody still get supplies? I mean, what's your situation like out there? Not just the grocery stores, but have you been able to order respirators, masks? Do you have, protective gear? And, I think people that have been watching this probably got their gear, ahead of everybody else. But have you been looking for anything recently, like, more advanced kind of face masks, gas masks, and the like? Have you been successful? That was quite a lot of protection. See that 1 mask, 2 masks, the shower cap. Now, you want to pay attention to what these people are doing because they know something about this virus. And she's not just washing her hands. Does she look like she's washing her hands? Do you know what I mean? She might have washed her hands before she started here, but she's getting the gloves. She's got the suit. And she's even bringing out more stuff. Look at this. So look at that. She looks like a ninja now. And that looks like a little bit more than just washing your hands. And these people are still getting infected. Here's, that's the kicker. Is you look at doctors and nurses, even in China, they were getting infected. They paid a heavy price. Every day looks like the same day now. It's like Groundhog's Day for everyone. It's something else. But yeah, let us know about the supplies. What kind of supplies? Have you looked for supplies? Do you need supplies? How long will the supplies last? That's another question. Supply chains are, pretty much broken right now. So, what's Michael Kudre saying? Hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin aren't highly effective in treating coronavirus. If they're not highly effective in treating coronavirus, why are doctors across the country trying to hoard them for themselves and their families? And now states are threatening administrative action for doing so. We're going to find that, all of the stuff that you need to survive is just not going to be available. So let us know if you guys have been successful in getting anything that's helpful. Let's see. Mylan has restarted production of its hydrochloroquine tablets in West Virginia. The company plans to have product available by mid-April and thinks it can ramp up to 50 million tablets, which could treat more than 1.5 million people. Well, if they can ramp up to 50 million tablets, what is that? 50 million in a week, in a month? 1.5 million people. There's 350 million people in America, and chances are it's gonna be like AIDS, where people are gonna have to take the meds all the time. We'll have to see about that, but. What does Mark Green have to say about hydroxychloroquine? Let's listen in, if we can.
Any kind of prediction on a timeline, is it possible at this point?
Sure. There are essentially two really hopeful, promising therapies out there. The Gilead drug remdesivir, which was it was created to fight Ebola, has shown some promise, and it's actually in what's called phase 3 level studies with the FDA, chloroquine alone. So Zithromax has been used. It's mostly for atypical bacterial type pneumonias, walking pneumonias it's often called, and bronchitis. We treat it a lot for bronchitis.
I think there's a lot of questions as far as why Zithromax is working so well with hydroxychloroquine. And I think there's a few different theories on that, but one of the things that we remember reading early on in this outbreak was that people were getting secondary infections on top of the virus, and sometimes the pneumonia is caused by some kind of mold, like AIDS. A lot of people that have AIDS die of pneumonia, and it's a mold-induced pneumonia. So maybe that's why. But anyways. What is this? Well, we'll get back into that. Although the Antichrist will make fake news popular and will be a chronic liar. Their followers will believe the delusions because they hate the truth. I mean, that's, CNN, that's NBC. That's all they pretty much speak is lies. And, these evildoers just can't handle the truth, ladies and gentlemen. This is from Pennsylvania. And maybe we should play a little bit of this.
What the fuck? I don't know him. Oh, fuck that. Fuck that. I'm out. Oh, hell's nah, nigga, no, not today. Not today. Oh, hell. Is he dead? All right.
Yeah, well, who wants to go out like that, ladies and gentlemen? It's now happening in a city near you. And that's the point of this home confinement, is that way you won't see videos like this. You won't see people dropping dead. They'll be, collected, like with a garbage truck instead. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead, ladies and gentlemen. So it seems like they've closed down the 606 trail in Chicago, like 666, like Route 66. Like, this is why this virus is coming. Many Americans right now are saying this to themselves, that they're essential. The government won't kill them. The goon squads won't come for them. They've been good little cult members. All right. Yeah, we got that one. We've seen that one. We're covering this. U.S. carrier diverts back to Guam after virus cases spike out there. And according to Zero Hedge, sailors on the ship are quoted as saying, "We're fucked." And you can imagine why. And look, I mean, they might be able to defend themselves from, all sorts of, modern weapons, but there's really nothing anyone can do for this. And how bad will it be is hard to say, but chances are pretty bad. The U.S. Department of Fear says that if you can name a political party or media partner that made COVID-19 their central focus when it mattered back in January, for example, or that they investigated the government's lack of preparedness when it mattered in February, or when they opposed the Wall Street coronavirus coup when it mattered in March. And obviously, you've been screwed out there. Schoolgirl, 16 years old with no underlying conditions, becomes France's youngest victim. Trump blames testing. Quite literally. U.S. has the most coronavirus cases in the world due to testing, says the president. So, we'll let you think about that one. Hoarding by doctors has become very worrisome in Idaho, Kentucky, Ohio, Nevada, Oklahoma, North Carolina, and Texas. According to the New York Times, doctors are stockpiling the drugs for themselves, and you can imagine what people would be willing to pay for all of that. Here's something really interesting. Again, this doctor from France that was really pushing the hydroxychloroquine and Zithromax publicly. All references to Zithromax have disappeared, and they're trying to replace it with Coletra, which is an AIDS medication. Will it be as effective? The Australians seem to think so, but all the buzz that we've heard about this combination was Plaquenil and Zithromax. So it looks like they're trying to do a switcheroo out there. We just want that to be on the record. I think a lot of people will figure that out for themselves here pretty soon. What happened to Zithromax? Don't forget about the Zithromax, ladies and gentlemen. On Hannity, there's a doctor talking about treating 350 patients They've had 0 deaths, 0 hospitalizations, and 0 intubations. So if they've had such success, why are there still deaths happening right now? Why aren't they using this? And, we need to find the answer to that. Now, one of the things is that people have to receive this drug combination early on in the disease, or early enough to make a difference. Once the damage has been done, the antivirals or antibiotics or whatever isn't going to reverse the damage. So the sooner the better. They should be putting out kits with Plaquenil and Zithromax right now, making it over the counter like antacids or aspirin. Everybody's been infected by this. And, if they're just going to create bottlenecks, people trying to get prescriptions, people trying to get tested when the tests don't work, this thing isn't ever going to clear up. And if they want to flatten the curve, they would just, give this to everyone. And if people, there'll be certainly people that OD, there'll be people that'll have heart attacks. And then you have to wonder, is the cure worse than the disease? And look, I think it should be available for people, and they can make their own choice whether they want to take it based on their condition. If they're feeling short of breath, like they're going to go into a hospital that's doesn't have room for, ICU or, anything, then I think at least people would have an option to try and take this and perhaps survive. We've been hearing a lot of positive things about this combination. We don't know why certain countries are trying to replace the Zithromax with Kaletra, but we suspect that they're doing so to say that this doesn't work. We saw the New World Order, World Health Organization come out today and say, oh, don't take the hydroxychloroquine. Don't save yourselves. And so we feel like they're going to sabotage the hydroxychloroquine with Kaletra instead of prescribing the Zithromax. Now, maybe it works just as well. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's other issues. I think we'll find out. But at this stage, this is what it looks like. And I think we've pretty much covered all the news. Look, obviously people may not care if the Chinese invade Taiwan or, invade Hawaii or even invade California. At this stage, what difference would it make? Really. But I think it's important to remember who let this virus in, who was trying to roll out the 5G, who arrested Assange, who let Hillary go, right? Who genocided the Kurds, and who basically killed America. It's important to realize what we're dealing with here, and they're nice and cute, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna send you $1,500 or $1,000, but they're basically charging $6,000 to everybody's name through the national debt to give you $1,000. So they're coming out like bandits. This is another 9/11. What else can you say? Other than, we feel like something big is coming, bigger than, what we've been experiencing so far. And I think that's, a pretty obvious given. But it looks like things may take a turn for, an extreme worse here in the next couple days, couple weeks. We'll keep covering this story as long as we can, as long as there's an internet. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll leave it there for this broadcast. Tell us about your experiences in the video comments. Share with people what you've been seeing. Any type of checkpoints, troop movements. If you've been seeing, shortages of supplies and the like. We don't really expect there to be, a massive problem with supplies for another month or two. But things are definitely, running out. And once the warehouses empty out, that'll be it. Unless they can, restart everything. And if they were serious about restarting everything, they would make this combination over the counter right now. They'd have it in every store. And they would even, have a national day, take your pill day, because everybody needs to be clean of this virus, or it's just gonna start up again and there'll be another wave. We'll leave it there. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Much love out there, and we'll catch everybody next time. Be sure to check out our website, stfnreport.com. Until then, if you're listening to this, you are the